This is the deep dive, everyone, right here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate you all being here for another deep dive with Tony Altimore, consultant strategist, and our buddy right here at the Voice of College Football. We so much appreciate Tony providing his knowledge and insight on college football and as it extends to academics, the administration, the other athletic programs, and campus life across college football, and how all of that affects what we see on the field. Again, this is our deep dive series. Check out our USC edition over on the USC channel. Tonight we are simulcasting on the Michigan channel as well as on the main channel. Tony, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, thanks. Go Blue. Sorry, that stung a little bit.
Yeah, I cannot respond in any such way, so we will just continue from there. But we do appreciate everybody's comments, questions there in the live chat. If you And again, we appreciate your comments and questions there in the live chat. If you would like for us to honor those, please include a super chat with those as well. All right, Tony, I am going to allow you to get going, and I will certainly be standing by with all sorts of questions, I'm sure.
Awesome. Well, and to give you guys some context, I am a Trojan alum, but the Big Blue are near and dear to my heart. I grew up in Michigan, and Coach Carr has been a friend of my dad since they were 18 years old. And so growing up, for example, like they would put me on the recruit list when the coaches wanted to talk to my dad. So, we grew up going to the big house. And so I love this one. All my friends from high school went to Michigan. So go Blue. But Michigan is kind of a special school. So we're going to be talking here about University of Michigan as a university, the academic oomph of this place, the athletic department, and the football history. And Michigan is one of just a very, very, very few sort of ultimate blue bloods in everything. And I'll tell you guys something actually kind of funny. When the Pacific Coast Conference was breaking up in 1957, the University of California Regents, at the time, Cal was the number 2 school academically in the nation behind Harvard, above the other 7 Ivies. And they passed this 5-point plan that said that Cal would only play schools that met its 5 standards of athletics and academics. There were 9 schools that met those. They were the 8 Ivy League schools who weren't going to play Cal, and Michigan. And so the California Regents had to deal with the fact that Michigan could not play 10 games against UCLA and 10 games against Cal. So it's a pretty special place. So go Blue. Hummus Hero, didn't your dad play for? Yeah, my dad played for Sparty. He actually tried recruiting Lloyd Carr for Duffy Doherty. Funny enough, that's how they became friends when he was Lloyd Carr's recruiting host at Michigan State. All right, so we're doing these as a series here for our Voice of College Football universe, and we're going to be comparing these schools. Now, when we compare them, I just want to give the context, guys. Like, these are phenomenal institutions. We talk a lot about how there's no such thing as a bad school in the Power 5, which is true, but there is absolutely no such thing. These are really the best of the best in football and in as universities. So this is one of the most interesting charts we have, and it takes just a minute. If you guys haven't seen it before, this is a chart that, going from left to right on your screen, is the academic rank of a school. And going from the bottom to the top is how much sports success they have. So it's an average of the 3 big academic ranks adjusted for AAU and FBS. So it's just AAU and FBS. And then the all sports success is the last 2 years of NACDA Directors Cup points. So it's kind of a cool chart, and it's pretty wild because we find there are 4 groups, actually 3 groups, because one of them doesn't have any schools in it. You guys can kind of see here, the Power 5 schools are in a world of their own. They are outstanding academic schools, and they are outstanding at sports. Now, in the bottom corner, you see kind of the elite Ivy League schools and the service academies. Down at the bottom, you see the G5. And interestingly enough, there are no really crappy schools that are good at sports. So when we compare these Power 5 schools, these are great schools. And look where Michigan is, way up in the top corner. So you take a look here, these are the Power 5 compared to the G5, just the Power 5 and the G5. And you guys can see they're really in very, very different worlds. All of the Power 5 schools are just outstanding schools. And Michigan is at the very top. I mean, the top three in terms of combined athletics and academics are Stanford, Michigan, and Texas. It's pretty impressive. And here's the full. Oh, we were supposed to. Sorry, there's an SC on there from last time. This kind of labels kind of where who's where. But you guys can see up there. You got Texas, Ohio State, Florida, Michigan, Stanford, Carolina, USC, Notre Dame, UCLA, making up that top corner. It's pretty cool. And then kind of nipping at the heels, you see a little bit. You see Princeton and Chicago and WashU and Tufts and a couple others that also take their sports seriously. Here it is in terms of just the Power 5. So and you guys can go back and look at this later. It's kind of a really interesting chart. The other thing that's pretty crazy is the Big Ten. So you guys have heard me talk ad nauseum before. The B in Big Ten stands for billions, and about just how the Big Ten is just really focused on the institutions and the universities and not just the sports. The Big Ten is about the whole school together and the partnership and joint strategy and joint focus and joint goals of those universities working synergistically to make themselves better. And you see that here unbelievably. And the best average academic rank. It has behind the Ivy League, and that also behind the Ivy League. The Big Ten, 94% of the Big Ten members are AAU. Used to be 100, now it's 94, but still amazing. Big Ten has among major football conferences, has the highest endowment and does the most research per school, which is pretty crazy. So let's take a look at university comparisons here. So let's just look at the University of Michigan here. University of Michigan is a public school, as you guys know. It's a flagship campus. It's not a land grant school. Michigan State was really the first land grant school. It's an AAU member, which is the super elite group of the 65 best research schools. And then take a look at this. This is actually kind of cool. You guys hear a lot of the Carnegie classifications, R1, R2, R3, actually created by the chancellor who created the Pac-12, funny enough, created that system when he went to Carnegie after got fired in a fight with Reagan. But you'll notice every single one of the schools that we cover here in the Voice of College Football community is an R1 school. And I mean, and that's the best of the best. That means highest level of research activity. Every single one of our channels is one of them. Of course, Michigan is one of the best. You look at core budget. Michigan has the second highest core budget among any of the Voice of College Football schools, second only to USC. You can see their per student budget really high. Michigan has 32,000 undergrads and 50,000 overall, which is 64% undergrad, which is pretty on par, very Big Ten-ish. Michigan has the highest number of applicants of any school here in the Voice of College Football community. And among major football schools, I'd have to check. I think you're second to UCLA, probably, but there might be one other one in there. Stanford, maybe. I don't remember. But I know you're second to UCLA. But you're number one here in the Voice of College Football community schools. And with a 20% admissions rate, you're actually third among Voice of College Football schools in terms of elite admissions. So the only schools that are tougher to get into are USC and Notre Dame. You have a really great yield rate, as far as students coming in. And one of the downsides of Michigan is for a public school, and I can tell you this as a Michigan resident, a former Michigan resident, grew up as a Michigan resident, you are one of the most expensive schools in the country as far as public schools go. So the in-state price is $32,000. Out-of-state price is about $70,000. And the average student who's receiving some kind of financial aid, their average price is about $19,000. That's kind of Michigan as a school. Hummus Hero is right. Michigan and Cal are like public Ivy. In fact, for a long time, Hummus Hero, Michigan and Cal outranked most of the Ivies. It wasn't until I think the 80s or 70s or whatever that the rest of the Ivies sort of ticked back up a little bit. So Michigan's not cheap, but it's a phenomenal school. Any surprises here for you, Mark?
Not really any surprises. Yeah, I don't see anything there that jumps out at me in particular. We'll certainly be reviewing the chat to see if anybody brings up anything that needs a little bit more digging. But yeah, everything's pretty much what, of course, we've seen many times here with in our conversations. We do appreciate Colby stepping up here. Thank you so much for that, Colby. I would love to see what Georgia Tech's comparison is.
Colby, email me or DM me or whatever, and I'll just add it in a spreadsheet and send you some screenshots.
Thanks, Colby.
We love Colby. Colby's a good friend of the channel. We can definitely, and Georgia Tech also great school, would be right up with any of these. All right, so let's dig in and move on. Let's talk about Michigan's academics. Now, this is where Michigan gets kind of wild. So this is these here you guys can see are the average academic rankings. Michigan is way high. Look at admissions rate again. The only schools in the Big Ten with more competitive admissions than Michigan are USC, UCLA, Johns Hopkins, and Northwestern. So pretty wild. Here's your quality of faculty. Look where you guys are. I mean, you guys are sitting there right between Wisconsin and Northwestern on par. There's Georgia Tech actually right there, slightly better for you, Colby. Right there, kind of equivalent with Dartmouth. I mean, the Michigan faculty are just phenomenal. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Hey, Tony, to go back 2 slides to your first academic slide.
Yeah.
So just to put it into context for us, the one prior to that, the one that you had on just a second ago, right there.
Admissions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Looking at the gap between Michigan, okay, we see the 3 above Michigan in the Big Ten, and then or maybe four, and then we see Michigan, we see a large gap there. That's how it presents itself and displays itself aesthetically in terms of the optics. But can you put into any kind of real life terms, what that disparity or that gap is between Michigan and the rest of the Big Ten, if that's meaningful?
So Michigan only admits about 20% of its applicants. Whereas the next school in the Big Ten, Maryland, is about 50.
Okay. Yeah.
Ohio State's about, 60, 55. And then you go all the way up to Iowa admits about 85% of their students. Chris says it's about 30. I'd have to check. I think this number says it's 20 or so. So that's kind of the gap. So there is a big gap. Michigan is such a national school. It's so competitive, especially for out-of-state students to get into, that it is way up there. UCLA is crazy competitive. As are, of course, Johns Hopkins, Northwestern, and USC are private, so they're a little bit different. Yeah, Chris points out that's the difference. Yep. Georgia Reload. We're getting to LSU here for you in just a sec. LSU for Georgia Reload looks like they're about 70. So that's the admissions rate. And then, but you see the faculty here a little more squeezed together. One of the things that this really shows you, if you guys look here at this is quality of faculty. So this is like awards and memberships in national academies and some other stuff. Look how strong the Big Ten is. Like, look at the Big Ten compared to like the SEC or the Big 12. It's pretty wild. And you guys see there too, the Pac-12 pretty much fits in that same band. Like the Big 12 and the Pac-12 have always been tight. And you sort of see, you see this a little bit why. And then this is research. So we talk about, conference members align in academic prioritization. Check out research here. By the way, Cal's a little screwy. They should probably have another billion. They're complicated. But you take a look at research, the Big Ten is just wild in this. And Michigan is number 2 in the Big Ten behind Johns Hopkins, if we count them. The Big Ten's still number 1, regardless of whether we count them or not. But Michigan is among major school. Again, Cal is complicated. So if we don't count complicated Cal and Johns Hopkins, Michigan is number 1 in all of major sports as far as research done. It's pretty amazing. Here's research rankings. So this is like quality of research and a bunch of stuff like that. You see here, Michigan is number 2 in the Big Ten behind Johns Hopkins. outranked only by the Ivy Leagues, Cal and Stanford. And I mean, Cal like literally has elements named after it, and that's the realm that Michigan's hanging out in. And Johns Hopkins is running satellites, so it's pretty cool. B Beans asking Johns Hopkins is in the Big Ten. Yeah, Johns Hopkins is an affiliate member of the Big Ten for their Division I sports. I wish they would do more. Now, here's some other things. Let's, academics kind of broaches that, like, how do you pay for it? So fundraising, Big Ten is number 2 behind the Pac-12 in fundraising, which is pretty amazing. Michigan is way high up in there. And then here are the statistics. Now, check out this. Again, we're going from red to green. This is academic comparison. Remember, guys, that every one of these schools is an awesome school. So a red on this chart, you're still awesome. But if you take a look at this, Michigan is just solid green the entire strip down. Like Michigan is a great school, and it's pretty crazy. So let's just dig in here. This is the top one is a status. Are you AAU? Are you top 50? Or are you a flagship school? I think Michigan the only one that's all three? Maybe Florida and Texas. There's a couple, but yeah, Michigan is an AAU member. It is a state flagship school. It is top 50 ranked. Your average academic ranking is number 25 among FBS and AAU. So we sort of put that together to keep everything equal for you guys. It's kind of a Voice of College Football ranking I put together for you guys. So that average rank is special because it's just AAU and FBS. You're number 22. Admissions rate, again, we talked about that, 20%. So your U.S. News, you're number 25. Your Shanghai, you're ranked number 19. Wall Street Journal, you're ranked 25. Forbes, you're 24. Forbes, you're ranked 25. Your faculty ranks out at 26 from Washington Monthly. Your research ranks out at number 10. Your research money, again, you're the biggest besides Johns Hopkins in all of sports here. And Cal's complicated at $1.6 billion. So you guys hear me talk about how the research money is and the academic money is where the money is. So you saw your school overall academic budget is at $3.5 billion. Your research budget here is $1.6 billion. You have a almost $17 billion endowment. These are crazy numbers, guys. Go blue. And your average fundraising is $500 million a year. So, I mean, you guys think about that. I mean, we talk. The Big Ten is big money in sports, but this is giant money. This is just another stratosphere. You've had 27 Rhodes Scholars on social in terms of social mobility, which is a really cool ranking. Like first generation kids, Pell Grant kids, stuff like that. You're ranked number 53 for social mobility, and you got about a 94% graduation rate. Like, my dad's gonna hate me for saying this, but it's a pretty good school.
Well, I immediately went to all the other strong. Well, again, just to put this into context, as Tony kicked us off, they're all great schools.
These are all great schools. Every one of them.
As I was scanning the chart and just seeing that block of green under Michigan and seeing where there were some other places there for like a Notre Dame where they're not completely, in the upper ranks of this very high select tier again, just to underline where Michigan really has no weaknesses in its game per se.
Yeah, Michigan is just phenomenal. I mean, it's a great spot. So, and people you guys who went there should be proud of it. And for folks who didn't go there, which is fine. I mean, that's what makes it's one of the great things about Michigan is the enormous fan base. But one of the differences that I noticed about Michigan fans is that Michigan fans are like, even if they didn't go there, are proud of what a good school it is and understand that that's really important to Michigan. And I think we see that here. Jason, ND ain't on our level and all levels. It's true. All right, so get into the fun stuff.
Yes, let's get to it. I think that's why just about everyone's here, but we want to put
you guys are here for
context.
Sports. Let's see how Michigan's athletic department stacks up. So athletic departments vary a lot in size and spend. So this is the number of athletes and spending per athlete. You see here, Michigan, the Big Ten, second only to the Ivy League in terms of number of athletes, and second only to, or I guess third in budget per athlete. So the Big Ten is huge. Now, this is an interesting thing. This is earned revenue. So this is how much revenue are schools earning from their athletic department, and what do they then subsidize their athletic department with? And this is where the Big Ten is pretty amazing, because the Big Ten, they're earning an average of $146 million. You'll see Michigan does better than that. And they only subsidize an average of about $5 million a school. And a lot of that's Rutgers and Maryland. But it's really remarkable. I mean, the Big Ten is one of those schools, is one of those conferences where the athletic department really sustains itself. The Big Ten has giant athletic programs, and they earn their own keep. It's pretty amazing. You see why USC and UCLA wanted to join. This is an interesting thing. We're going to see this for the schools too. I went to calculate what's the value of the walk-ons, because walk-ons are hidden. People forget about them. They're paying tuition, but like your donors are paying for your scholarship athletes, and your TV money and all that are paying for your scholarship athletes. The walk-ons are also paying for themselves. That's real budget money that's under the control of athletics, as it's human capital. And so what does that add? Well, you see the average Big Ten schools has about 40 million in walk-ons. It's like hidden money that nobody talks about. So I thought that was pretty cool. Whoever's asking criteria and social mobility, it's from Washington Monthly. It's a whole bunch of different things. It has to do with like Pell Grants, first generation kids, expected graduation rate, stuff like that. So it's all, you can download the charts off Washington Monthly. So this is athletic department success. So all sports, readiness to compete. How are you competing in all sports? I should reword that. But Michigan is number 1 in the Big Ten. You see they're actually number 3 overall, behind Texas and Stanford. Number 1 in the Big Ten, beating Ohio State, Florida, lapping at your heels. So it's hard to beat that. Hard to beat that. And then you see Hopkins, USC, UCLA, Princeton, Virginia, Notre Dame, Carolina, Arkansas, Kentucky, Oklahoma, Tennessee, all great programs. And Oklahoma State, you guys had a great show today in Oklahoma State that you guys had. Oklahoma State has one of the top athletic programs in the country. I think that they are like number 5 or 7 or something in terms of overall national champions. And you see Oklahoma State's number 1 in the Big Ten. Thanks, Jason. Go Blue. We appreciate it. Thanks for supporting the channel. And then this is another real interesting thing. So you guys have seen me use this. I wish I could get like reporters to talk about this. They could steal it if they wanted. But this is an interesting number. I call it cash flow profitability. Accountants will stress a little bit about that, the CF word, but I think it's a better descriptor word. This is how much money are football and basketball throwing off to fund the rest of the department. And it takes out all the non-cash stuff. It tries to adjust for that and just try to figure out how much spare profit are football and basketball throwing off to the rest of the athletic department to fund it. And you see here the Big Ten, you'll see Michigan is phenomenal in this. The Big Ten is number 2 behind the SEC. And this is really about, like, again, how capable is your athletic department of funding itself? And what's wild here is, guys, look at how much of those conferences are negative, right? Look at how negative the American is. That means the American schools are losing money on football and basketball. And of course, everything else just loses money. So like they're starting in a hole and just digging deeper. So when you hear Mike Oresco talk about like the glory of their conference, guys, they're doing worse financially in the American than the ASUN and WAC. In Conference USA and the MEAC. It's not a good financial situation in the American. But compare that to the Big Ten and the SEC, where they fund the whole athletic department. So this is the cash flow profitability. These are the top 30 most profitable programs by this estimate. And Michigan is number 4. Behind Ohio State, Texas, Notre Dame. Like, hard to beat that. That's how you guys have this phenomenal athletic program. You have the phenomenal athletic program because your school can finance it off its own revenue. Like it's a self-sustaining thing. Pretty wild and pretty impressive. Hard to beat that. And you'll notice here, by the way, these are all Big Ten, SEC, ACC, Pac-12. Oregon's Pac-12. And then you'll see the logos are the ones here in our Voice of College Football community. Interestingly enough, look at Indiana. Like Indiana is real profitable. Fund their department despite how bad they are. That's kind of crazy. So this is recruiting expense. We've had a little bit of talk about recruiting expense here. What do you spend? So this is men's recruiting. I know CBS, I think, has put out an estimate of football recruiting.
Yes.
I couldn't get that from the government to know that it was standardized. I don't know exactly what they're using, but every school in the country has to report men's and women's recruiting expenses to the Department of Education based on standard accounting practices. So today, I know the guys today from Oklahoma State, they had some issues with like what CBS was including or not. This is what the schools have reported based on very strict criteria from the Department of Education. So that's why I like this number, even though it's all your men's sports together. Again, it's for the spending is all in football and basketball. It's not the lacrosse team. But you'll see Michigan is right there at number 6. The only schools outspending Michigan in terms of recruiting are Georgia, Texas A&M, Clemson, USC, and Texas. And followed immediately by the usual cast of characters of Oklahoma, Alabama, Penn State, Tennessee, Ohio State, Vandy up there, surprisingly, perhaps. Notre Dame, Kentucky, the real MVP will be proud, and Miami. And you see the Big Ten, just outspending. Big Ten, the SEC, as always, outspending everybody. So here's the athletic department comparison. And again, Michigan is very, very green. Although Mark will be proud, Ohio State has some areas it's a little greener. We talked about you guys have, phenomenal. You're behind only Stanford and Texas in terms of NACTA points. A statistic I think is really interesting. Big 3 national champions. So this is national championships in football, basketball, and baseball added together. You have 12, which is real good. USC has 21. Dun, 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 dun. Sorry to get that poke in. You have 36 overall NCAA national championships. Pretty good. 155 Olympic medals, which is tied for second, I think, here in the Voice of College Football world. USC is 320, but you and Texas, I think, are number 2. Michigan and Texas here in our world here. You have 29 sports teams. Or 29 head coaches. Some of the stuff, guys, with like indoor tennis, outdoor tennis, cross country, track gets a little blurry. So this uses what they report to the Department of Education in terms of number of coaches. So you have, I count that as a sport. Although sometimes the schools will divide them up further, but you have their 29 sports. That's pretty wild. You're number 2 in our Voice of College Football world behind Ohio State. And you're number 2 in terms of athletes. You have 886 athletes. That's crazy, guys. A lot of these schools have like 300. These schools here, these are the best of the best, and they're showing like 500. And you guys are nailing in there with 800, almost 900. And you have a $176 million budget to support that. Thank you, Jason. We appreciate it. You guys have to be loving these numbers. Your football budget, $52 million. Men's basketball, $10 million. So your football budget and basketball budget aren't huge. Your Olympic budget is very big. $45 million you guys spend on Olympic sports. That's a lot. It's second only to Ohio State here in the Voice of College Football world. And you have the highest value of your walk-ons. So you have so many walk-ons that I from my calculation of what do your walk-ons contribute to the athletic department, they're pumping in $50 million of bonus, like free money from their parents and the government and the academic side, which is pretty cool. Again, your football and men's basketball, how much profit do I think you generate? And the estimate here is you generate about $120 million of profit from football and basketball to fund the rest of the department. You've been to 8 College World Series, pretty good. 6 Final Fours, which is real good for this group. Your KenPom rating last year was 38, and your 10-year KenPom was pretty high too. So that is pretty solid.
It shows that these football powers are also very invested in the overall athletic success of their schools. even though we
They
know
are.
them as football and men's basketball programs.
Well, and remember too that like one of the goal of athletics, like why do we do this really for sports? We do this so we have athletes on our campuses who are learning like the value of making a plan and working hard and using your talent. I mean, that's like the purpose of sports. You know, why we teach kids sports from a younger age. It's why we want, and why do we want athletes? Because they run fast? No, it's because they know how to work hard and set goals and achieve great things. And that's why we want them on our campus. The same reason we want great musicians and great actors and great artists and all that kind of stuff. So the Big Ten schools, especially because they can afford it, they want to have the best of everybody. It's why you guys have Olympic swimmers. It's why you're winning Olympic medals. You know, it's pretty cool here. And Michigan does it as well or better than anybody.
Tony, I am thinking that this next chart is going to gain a lot of people's attention, and people are going to be extra zeroed in on each and every block.
Football. I think they are. Probably more than the other ones. So, guys, this is pretty crazy. So this is just 1950 to present. National champions. Check out how consolidated national champions have become in the main three, the biggest three conferences. Pretty wild. And Michigan, of course, is one of them. I was at that Rose Bowl game. This is just since 85. This actually just shows just the team since 85 who've won. Again, pretty crazy the way consolidation is moving. So let's look at football history. Weeks ranked in the AP poll. You are second in the Big Ten, only behind Ohio State. Sorry, guys. And now let's dig into football. So football here is something, you know, again, Michigan is just absolutely phenomenal at. So Kyle Umlong from Texas, great podcaster, great Twitter personality, calculates a phenomenal thing. He calls it his blue blood rank, and Kyle in his blue blood rank, Michigan comes with 6. Winsipedia, great website. They have a multi-factor calculation. They put you at 7. You have officially, according to the NCAA, 9 football national championships, though they have not been terribly recent. Haha, just kidding. We love you guys. They're going to hate me for that. I'm going to get hate mail now. Yeah, as far as AP weeks ranked at number 1, you have 34, a little lower than some, but you have 903 weeks ranked overall. Guys, 903. That's crazy. Look at Georgia. Georgia's at like 600 and something. You're at 900. I mean, it's wild, Michigan, and Ohio State also. Just since 2000, not quite as much. There were a couple of lean years there, but you're at 269. Your average TV rate viewership has been really high. Your fan base estimate that we put together is really high. Your all-time win percentage is one of the best of anybody, 73%. Especially amazing given that you guys have been playing so much football for so long. You have 44 conference championships. That's nuts, Scott. Look, I mean, I guess it's not that because we've also got Oklahoma and Nebraska and USC on here, and they're in Alabama. The sort of just like 5 schools or whatever that are just insane in that metric. But 44 is wild. 87 consensus All-Americans, 51 NFL first-round draft picks, 400 NFL draft picks, 401 NFL draft picks overall. And like we said before, your football is working off a $52 million budget. And football and basketball are throwing off a profit of about $120 million.
A lot of green for the maize and blue there. It's mighty impressive. There's no question about that. Mighty impressive. And some of the gaps in numbers between the blue bloods are minuscule when you consider we're talking 120 years. Well, we're talking well beyond that to the very beginning, but roughly 120 years of football. Absolutely.
It's pretty crazy. Any surprises on here, Mark, for Michigan?
Well, certainly Okay, the 5-year television average, certainly Ohio State and Michigan. I looked at the 2022 TV ratings, and they were extremely comparable between those two. Uh,
And I think that that's the 5 years pre-COVID. It's from Run It Back with Zach put that together.
when you talk about AP weeks at number one, to me, being number one, the only time it really matters, obviously, is the final
Is the
week.
last one.
If you're number three, you're number four, you could be number one. So they haven't hit that mark quite as much as some of their contemporaries there. But yeah, it is a proud football tradition for good reason.
It really is, and I mean, again, the thing that really strikes me too is, again, Michigan's played as a number of these schools. When you look at Ohio State there, and Michigan, and Notre Dame, and Texas, and Oklahoma, and Alabama, and you're seeing 73% win rate over 120 years. That's just crazy. I mean, Boise State has a phenomenal overall win rate, right? But they haven't been playing 15 games, 10 to 15 games a year for 120 years.
Yeah. And of course, we both know that Michigan has had the all-time lead in wins, and then the winning percentage they've owned up until just a couple of years ago. Ohio State and Alabama have been tracking them pretty fiercely and finally caught them.
And we slowed down a little bit with the Clay Helton years.
I
was watching us slip, being like, no.
A little bit. Tony, do you have a few minutes to take a call or two?
Sure.
All right, folks.
And real quick, I just want to hit real fast. John
Sure.
was pointing out to everybody. Yeah, this is every school with a Voice of College Football channel. We're doing the comparisons here, and it is the bluest of the blue bloods.
So we have entered the link in the chat. If you would like to ask Tony a question, come on here, make an observation, whatever you have concerning this topic and Michigan's status in everything we've reviewed here. It is really, again, people know my fandom, but I've got to speak the truth and tell it like it is. When we think of what collegiate athletics should be, based on the academic model being first and foremost and being the foundation of everything, and then football and athletic excellence coming off of that, Michigan is a standard for that.
They really are. And I'll tell you also, guys, I mean, I'm a little biased having grown up there, but I've been to 4 Rose Bowls that Michigan's been at. And I mean, Michigan has great fans. They've got great students. Michigan really does it right. And it's kind of funny. You guys heard me say at the beginning, the hysterical thing from 1957, that it's a riot. Truly, the California Board of Regents didn't check their numbers when they passed their 5 standards to know that Michigan was the only school in the country that met them. So it's pretty cool.
So again, Tony is going to join us on each and every team channel throughout the spring and summer. We will eventually get to all of them for a deep dive on each and every one. So we wanted to present this and really give each fan base a chance to get a full look at an explanation of where they stand and, some of the real excellence that is out there. And again, Tony, the way you shaped this up the other night on the USC show, everyone should, whether you attended there, you're an alumni, you are just a fan of that particular athletic program or football team, definitely should take pride in and consider, as Tony let us know the other day, 6,200 institutions of some higher learning, and about 2,500 are
what we would consider. Yeah, it's about 6,200 schools of higher learning, about 2,500 that we would sort of consider like real major schools. We should have brought the Big Ten research number in there. About 1,500 that are sort of in the NCAA and NIA world. And then of that, about 300 or so, 350 or something, Division One. And so when we look at this, guys, for example, and you look at somebody and you're like, oh, we're 150, like that's 150 out of 6,200. These are all great schools. And what's wild too, and we talked about this on the USC channel the other day, is when you think about federal research money in this country from the National Science Foundation that they track, there are 112 schools in 9 conferences that account for 72% of that money or something. And the Big Ten alone, just the Big Ten, thanks in large part to Michigan, accounts for about 22% of federal research money in this country. Just the Big Ten. And that's why, like, when the Big Ten is looking to make additions, like, they're looking at research. I mean, that's a big thing. It's why they talk about it, because it is so important to them and the presidents. Again, we joke that the B in Big Ten stands for billions. And you know, you see it here. I mean, look at this number. Look at Michigan's core budget right there. Yeah, Michigan's core budget right there. almost $3.7 billion budget. That's a lot of money. Somebody's asking, are they money laundering? They are not money laundering. They're splitting atoms and all sorts of other cool things.
Antoine, I am scouring the chat for your questions. I did see your last comment that you were looking for us to address some of your questions, but I'm not finding anything there. You know, Tony, the way you outlined it, again, both tonight and on the USC show, as you just did in my response to wanting you to set the context of that, it reminds me of a management meeting years and years ago at ESPN, where one of the vice presidents and the director of the department was outlining, you know, in terms of evaluating staff and taking our studio directors, who are among the very best in the business, and having to review and rank and rate them and saying, you know, they're all excellent. You know, we really don't want to do that, because even the guys in the last 5 spots, let's say out of the 50 studio directors at a
really
place
good
that does it that way, they're really good at their job. So none of them are lacking, really.
And Antoine, if you have other questions, Antoine, can you just put them back in the chat? And we can see them, we can answer them. I'm sorry. The chat sort of, there's a couple chats combined here, Antoine, so they just sort of like breeze on the side. I don't get to see everything going.
Yeah, I went back quite a ways and I couldn't find anything.
You know, I you take a look at that, Mark. The thing that really stood out to me, and we were talking there, just your voice of college football world. The fact that every single one of these is R1 is pretty impressive. These are some great schools.
Question here. Yeah.
So Michigan and Ohio State have always sort of been the biggest bosses, I think, in that room. Ohio State's president very much runs the show. But so does the U of M president. The former U of M president retired from Michigan, went to become president of the AAU, and then when your president had a little bit of a scandal, she came back as acting president in her retirement. Like, she's a boss. So yeah, I would say, you know, assuming Michigan and Ohio State kind of run the show like everything else.
John, thank you for the contribution. We appreciate you. Please run the numbers, Tony, and tell me the Pac will be okay. Big 12 folks are on my neck.
The Pac will be fine. I mean, today, hysterical interview. I don't know if you guys heard Adam Rittenberg. He was talking about how much like ridiculous, like fake realignment news there is coming out of the Big 12. He goes, this is a dumb story. He said, this is one of the dumbest stories of my career. This is just a dumb story, is what he said. And it's true, because I mean, technically, I guess things could change, but we know that no Pac-12 teams want to go to the Big 12. So I would be stunned. I mean, I would be stunned if the situation did change where anyone wanted to go. Certainly, anybody who's been telling you that schools are about to go is wrong. Mark doesn't have to vouch for that. I can vouch for that, but I can tell you that anybody who's been telling you that so far is wrong. So again, things could change, but I think the Pac will be fine. Who has the most government contracts? I guess that's your research. It would be Michigan.
We've got our buddy Tim Prangley showing up tonight.
I'm just a big fan.
A new member of the Big Ten, of course.
I'm just a big
new
fan
member
of Tony Altomare. Huge fan. This guy's got numbers for days. But no,
right on. Thanks, Tim.
I was just kind of thinking about it. So you have UCLA, all those basketball titles. You got USC with all those baseball titles. You got Michigan with all those football titles, and Ohio State, and USC. I'm asking for my next maybe comparison later down the road. When
fearsome foursome.
Well, I'm thinking the SEC is going to be, Texas is pretty, fierce in athletics. So is Florida, and maybe your next project, Tony, is going to be taking a look at the SEC and all, and Florida and all their swimmers and athletes, in Texas and all their track and field athletes, and breaking down
phenomenal.
Which conference, which conference is actually, Big 12, ACC, you guys aren't, Pac-12 now. You used to be the conference of champions, not so much anymore.
No, the Big Ten is the conference of champions now.
Yeah,
I think I put out a tweet or whatever. I showed when you move those over, the Big Ten is now number one. But yeah, take a look at Texas there. Texas and Florida very green here in athletics.
Yeah, Florida and Texas athletics just
phenomenal
too.
Well, Tim,
and also Florida and Texas academics.
Yeah,
Tim,
almost
you know what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah, true. Sorry.
Tim, you know what I'm going to be doing starting in 2024? I'm going to consider that a big reset. Texas, Oklahoma to the SEC, USC, UCLA to the Big Ten. This is a new era to track records, championships, all of it. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll tell you guys, this is just my personal opinion. And you guys can call me right or wrong. Families are complicated. And when families have divorces and new marriages, they get complicated. And so you just lean in and embrace it. And that's kind of my view of realignment titles. So I know the SEC, I understand, did some stuff that ticked a lot of people off when Texas A&M came in, for example. And they were recognizing the great athletes of Texas A&M history as great SEC athletes. And I look at that and they were well, they never played it down in the SEC. And I looked at that and I said, well, you know what? Kind of like a step family, they came in. And so, we recognize them. You're part of the family. We recognize it. And I think it's kind of cool that the SEC does that. And I hope the Big Ten does that for Nebraska. I hope the Big Ten does that certainly for USC and UCLA, because USC and UCLA are bringing their bags with them. And I think that it's okay. It's okay to recognize that the families and conferences change a little bit. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox, but I think it's okay to recognize that those titles come over, even though they were in a different conference at the time. In fact, don't let the Pac-12 fool you, because the Pac-12 was founded in 1959. And then in 1968, just decided to assume the history of the Pacific Coast Conference that it had revolted from. That's sort of like if the U.S. was we're just going to declare ourselves having been founded by William the Conqueror. Just because. And that's literally what the Pac-12 did in 1968. So don't be fooled there. Okay, Tim.
Our buddy Larry's showing up here. Okay, Tim and Tony, you aren't even moved out and rubbing your new marriage partner in our face. Too soon.
Sorry, Larry. Larry, you guys, it's okay. Larry, you guys can have those. Larry, we want to play you guys in the Rose Bowl. How about that? Michigan, USC, Utah in the Rose Bowl. I think that'd be a pretty cool thing. Assuming we beat Michigan for the conference title in Ohio State.
Now, Larry, you're the one pushing us out. We're not. Hey, listen, we're not even out of the house yet. Okay, we're still in the house for another year, right? The judge said we're having a cooling off period, but it does look like we're going one direction for sure. But it, the ink's not even dry. The final papers aren't even signed yet. So come on, we're still in the Pac-12 for at least another season, right? Well, exactly one season.
Exactly. It's gonna be a fun season. We got the Utah coming to LA. Will be pretty cool.
Tim,
I'm gonna jump in. Tony, I got to get you to come out to the weekender. The last weekender, we have to go to Cal.
I know, we got to go to Cal. That was
Yeah.
my first weekender too.
Yeah,
there are freshman year stories from that do not belong on YouTube. Thank God there was no. It was pre-Facebook.
Well, you froze up, Mark. Were you saying something?
Yeah, I've been having issues with the internet all day, but I was saying, Tim, you would have loved it or hated it, a little bit of both earlier today. While you were hard at work, we were doing a live stream with our Oklahoma State buddy Cody.
Great chat today with Cody.
Mark's visiting Joey in West Virginia right now, I think.
Yeah, I really am. Internet. I don't know what to tell you about it.
It was a great chat with Cody today.
It really was. It was fun. Tim, you would have been so proud of me sticking up for the Pac-12. Like, really.
You were Pac-12 love. It was impressive, guys. We had Pac-12 Mark.
I'm gonna have to go check it out because yeah, I know that there's a lot of ill will coming from that part of the world, but
yeah, Mark was sticking up for the Huskies and the Dogs and the Beavs.
Yeah, I was getting this, Washington, they're no good. I was like, and Cody's great. Cody's phenomenal.
Cody's awesome.
And he was really nice about saying, hey, you gave me some things to think about. And so Cody was phenomenal. But yeah, it was a fun little Pac-12, Big 12 debate. And now we've added to our Big Ten contingent here with John checking in.
Hey, I was like, Tony saying nice things about Michigan is exactly the content I needed for my Thursday night. So I appreciate you.
Well, it's hard to say, the thing about Michigan, although my dad who won national championships with Duffy Doherty would probably disagree with this, but it's hard not to say nice things about Michigan when you're looking at data anyway.
Well, I was making the point that I think you were mentioning the 20% acceptance rate. So about 6 years ago, I want to say they started allowing the standard application. So when I applied, it was a special one that you had to do. So they started doing the standard. I think it was like 5-6 years ago, and I think that brought the percentage down. I think it was a little higher in the 30s or something before that.
Well, and that's when you look at the most applied to schools, I think 4 of the 5 most applied to are University of California campuses, or 5 of the 6 or something like that. And it's because they can apply to more than one with the same application.
So it's safe to say that Tony would have got into USC, but Rick and I, we both know it. We flat out say it. That
I don't know about that.
If Rick and I applied, it's under 10% now at USC. So there's
wild.
We have
none of us would.
Very little.
We'd all be at Santa Monica College with everybody else.
We'll go the JC route, then we'll get in. We'll take the mid-year.
We'll come in later. And I mean, just take a little. Let's go back to the Michigan thing here. This was the one that I just couldn't get over here. I mean, just look at that row of green. And then these are all world-class schools. Every one of these is a world-class school.
And normally green is not our color. But in this, I'm okay with it.
Oh, it's true. It's true. And guys, and also to our SEC friends, check out Florida and Texas. What was it? What was it? Ty guy told me once, he said something like, stop showing those numbers. We don't want our fans to know how smart our kids are. And I laughed hard. But yeah, you take in Georgia also great school. I mean, because again, like I said, all these are great schools. You look at Notre Dame. Of course, Notre Dame is a smaller school. They don't have as much of a grad program. And they don't do as much research. Now Notre Dame does $250 million in research. So I mean, we say, oh, they don't do very much. They do $250 million. That's a lot of money. But Michigan is doing $1.5 billion.
Well, we've talked about Notre Dame. We talked about Notre Dame before in terms of, when in the past, before this 2024 recruiting class, back when Michigan was struggling in that department. We always talked about, the standards at Michigan and Notre Dame are both at a level where it's tough to bring the recruiting in and to get all the recruits that you might want in both of those places. And that's one of the factors that Brian Kelly, I think, talked about when he moved to LSU.
But it also helps you a lot too. So one of the things, and Tim knows this, we've talked about this. Lincoln Riley, after he'd been at USC for like, I don't know, 2 months or whatever, gave an interview and they said something like, what's one thing that really surprised you? And he said, how much easier it is to recruit parents. I mean, because you see USC is almost as green as Michigan in there. And he talked about how when you're trying to recruit parents, especially, maybe not, your parents of the, that number 1 5-star, but like the kid that, because I mean, the other thing too is, guys, at these schools, like your walk-ons are important and they're recruited. And, how do you recruit a kid to be like, oh, and will you pay $60,000 a year for your kid to go here? It's easier to get them to do it in Michigan.
Yeah.
Easier to get them to do it at SC.
Well, not just that, but your smartest guys usually are your linemen. So no wonder they're getting so many great offensive linemen. I remember for years, we were trying to grab offensive linemen. Stanford would be snatching them up left, right, and center. And all these linemen going to Stanford. And, I mean, arguably probably, Wonderlic aside, seems like the smartest guys are usually your quarterback. But definitely it seems like it's your guys calling out your line play is your linemen. So those guys are usually your smartest guys on the team. We'll see. Speaking of smart linemen, can I do a plug, Mark, really quick?
You can.
Speaking of a very smart lineman, on the 21st, so we've nailed it down. It's gonna be the 21st of May. So that's not this Sunday, but the following Sunday, we are going to have Anthony Munoz on our show. I sent him a list of questions, and I'm like, hey, I don't want to presume how much time you have, because I'm looking at this guy doing interviews with top name guys in the country, right? And he's coming on our show, and literally, not only is he arguably one of the best, in my opinion, the best left tackle in football history, but he's also probably the nicest person that I've ever talked to, a football player in my entire life. He's so unassuming, so genuine. His story, his childhood story, his struggles through college, he's gonna share all that stuff with us. And if you guys have an hour, because this is what he said to me, he goes, oh, I said, we have about an hour's worth of question. I don't want to presume how much time you have. We've tried to pare it down. Maybe you can pick what you want to talk about. He's like, I can come on for an hour or wherever, how long it takes. That's literally what email said. And so we're in for a treat, an amazing Hall of Fame tackle and a Hall of Fame human being. So I really hope you guys can come check it out. They'll be on the, Mark, are we gonna do on the both the USC and the national channel?
No, I think we're going to relegate you to the Wisconsin channel for that.
Hey,
absolutely.
there we go.
Whatever you want.
Cheese heads.
You got Anthony Munoz. Whatever you want.
I didn't get Anthony Munoz. Anthony Munoz, this is a power. I mean it. It's, we throw it around, but the power of the Trojan family. It really is true. The people that we've reached out to, just guys, we get some big name people on. Okay, none as big as Anthony Munoz, but we've had an all-time great. John Jackson. So sure, I'll come on. It's just these guys are awesome, and we're lucky to have them. So if you guys have time on a Sunday, and we'll be talking everything from USC to his life. He had 2 kids that went on to play at Tennessee and Ohio State as well. Michelle, his daughter, started out with Pat Summitt, ended up at Ohio State, and she had some ankle injury.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, his son Michael was an All-American, unanimous All-American at Tennessee. So we're going to discuss all that stuff. So if you want to have an hour with a genuinely great, incredible human being, and then Anthony Munoz, you come see us, and we'll be on at 5:00 Pacific, 8 Eastern on the 21st of August. So
Tim,
I think Gumby's issued the challenge.
Cincinnati Bengals channel for you before Anthony Munoz.
I love Matt Leinart. He's a Heisman winner, but I got to tell you, on the Pantheon, I'll bet you Matt Leinart might say the same thing. He's gonna put Munoz above his status. So
Munoz has a jacket.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And he's in the Ring of Honor, the Bengals. I mean, I can go on and on. NFL Man of the Year in 1991. We really have a great opportunity. So we will be fielding questions. Come on in if you want to join us for an Anthony Munoz interview.
Jason, with as enthusiastic as you are about Michigan football, you are the guy to make that happen. You make that happen for us I tell all these
Yeah.
people all the time that are always asking me to get those kind of guests. I said, you know what? We'll do a little workshop on here. I'll send out the tweet, but what's going to catch their attention is if they get 150 likes or a bunch of responses or a bunch of retweets. That's what's going to catch their attention.
Yep. Let's do a
Jason-
tweet-a-thon. You know, I remember that one time we did a tweet-a-thon.
Yeah.
We should do that one week and spend a couple minutes and
Yeah, we
just
should.
tweet at Tom Brady and Dr. Santa, and why not? Like, you know, might as well.
Absolutely.
Dr.
As soon
Santa would be
as
awesome.
Brady finds out-
Can I wait? Actually, can we give a quick Dr. Santa story from his interview?
Yep.
Do you know the
I'm
Dr. Santa
down.
story from his interview? So when the Regents were interviewing Dr. Santa, so Santa Ono, they brought him in. He was the president at the University of British Columbia, which is the school that I think the Pac-12 should seed for it's a whole side subject. Anyway, they brought him in and they said they talked about the importance of athletics. And they said, well, you know, how well do you understand athletics? And he said, well, when I was the president of Cincinnati, I crowd surfed at the top of Nippert Stadium, though it's a little smaller than the big house. And they said, okay, you get it. If the president will crowd surf to the top of Nippert Stadium, okay, he's good.
Everyone in
he's done some great
Cincinnati so Cincinnati, obviously the other related football power that had Dr. Santa. Everybody who I talked to on the various internet forums and whatever said, you're gonna love this guy. So that was pretty ringing, because normally, you know, I know Michigan has had some presidents recently that we didn't say that about. So the fact that Cincinnati was that excited, like they were happy for us to have this guy as president.
Yeah, he's great, and he's done some other great stuff. And I know your provost, who's supposed to be phenomenal, just I think signed an extension or got an award or something like that too. So yeah, I mean, Michigan, Michigan is just one of those great places that's great all the way across the board. And you know, again, you see that here. Also Ohio State. I mean, we're poor Mark has just got to be dying inside as we go through Michigan stuff. Ohio State is equally amazing.
Sure.
I
as
started
a
the
SC,
channel,
as a
Tony.
Florida.
I can only blame myself.
That's true. That's true. Well, we've got one Michigan guy to two USC and a Buckeye and
I'm a Michigan native. I get some kind of native points.
Okay, fair enough. Well, Larry's here too, so
We won't. I won't tell you, John. Sometime when we're not recorded, I'll tell you the high school stories from Ann Arbor.
oh boy. Okay.
They were great.
Yeah, Ann Arbor
great.
can get pretty crazy.
Yeah, when you're 17, Ann Arbor's awesome.
Yep.
Campus corner, baby.
Heck yeah.
I
have a-
too funny.
Hey, Larry.
I have a question for John. I don't know a whole lot about the
Me?
Michigan, about the Michigan.
I'm not even
loss.
one of the people. I just came on to hang out for a minute.
You're
What's
Mr.
up?
Michigan.
Yeah, I guess so. All right.
Yeah, this
What's
is
up?
supposed to be a Michigan show, so I thought I would come and learn something.
Okay,
And
well,
what I want to know is, how are your trenches looking on both sides of the ball this year? How many returners? What are your trenches like?
so Michigan returns 81% production. And when you look at both sides of, two of the offensive linemen came back through the 1 more year fund. I don't know if you heard about the 1 more year fund, which was a special NIL fund that was set up actually in part by our guy who comes on the show sometimes, Justin Rowe. So two linemen are back, Keegan and Zinner. And then that also translated to Cornelius Johnson coming back, Blake Corum coming back. That was all from the 1 more year fund. So because of that, I think our trenches are looking good. Michael Barrett's back. Junior Colson's back. So not a lot of people. You had some. Mozzie Smith is probably our biggest loss. But I think I have faith in Jesse Minner. He was ranked, I think, the number 2 defensive coordinator by at least one of the publications. So I feel good about the trenches.
All right, that was all I wanted to know. I know you lost me, Mazza or whatever, and then I wasn't sure on your offensive line, because that seemed to be a pretty good strength last year. So you're saying you've got 2 returning offensive linemen.
Well, and some that are returning from I'm talking about the ones who are going to go to the NFL.
Right. So starters
yeah.
wise.
Yeah.
You have 2 returning starters, but
yeah, and you've got Carson Barnhart who's returning. Yep.
Okay.
And we got a transfer center again. So there's a history now with Olu. We had a transfer center, and he seemed to do pretty well. So it's looking good.
Antoine in the chat is reminding us that Josiah Stewart is a big transfer portal addition on the edge from Coastal Carolina. He had close to double-digit sacks last season.
Yeah. So the key question, though, if we're going to dive further into what you're saying, Larry, the key question is it good enough to beat Georgia? Because if you remember 2021, that was the only team that truly challenged us on both lines. Georgia looked like mountains compared. So that's really
are we using the phrase challenged? The only time we were challenged was
like super challenged.
I'm just teasing. We lost to Tulane. I'm not talking smack to anybody.
But remember that game. That was like the only game that it literally visually you could see the difference in both sides of the ball, and Georgia just dominated.
Who else is
Larry,
waiting for Mark to chime in?
I'm trying to determine if John has already taken the Ohio State game for granted, if Michigan fans are already just bypassing Ohio State now.
Because I said in chat, Ohio State also has a chance yet again to do what they did last year and get to the playoffs. And I'm thinking it's going to be Ohio State against Georgia in the semis, and I think it's going to be Michigan against USC.
John has already seeded the teams, no less.
Hey,
that's just my guess right now.
We're in
as
John?
a Michigan native Trojan. I like this guy.
That's my guess. I mean, I've been wrong before. I've been right and wrong a lot. So
thanks, Tim.
There we go. There's Tim's graphic.
Yes, everybody subscribe to this channel, and if you're a fan, subscribe to the Michigan channel too. One of the cool things about the Voice College Football community is that every one of these teams on this screen has their own special channel. So if you're interested in them, subscribe to them.
And it's weird. A lot of these streams through browsing get a lot of repeat traffic. Like about 60% of you guys out there, only 40 of you guys are subbed up. But you come back to the channel, if you hit the subscribe button, and then you also hit that notification bell, you're gonna know when Tony Altimore is coming down and throw more facts. I mean, I'm telling you guys are lucky to have them, and you guys got to take advantage of these moments. So if you are subscribed, and you have notifications on, you will know when Tony's coming on to bring some more numbers.
Well, and guys, and I hope this is helpful for you guys, because I hope it helps some of you guys that are just, that never thought about this stuff, understand kind of the broader context of what's going on. And I'll tell you, for example, one of the things, and I think I mentioned this at our USC thing the other day. One of the things that schools like Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State and Oregon and Clemson and LSU and Alabama and West Virginia and all they do phenomenally well is they're using their athletic events as networking and engagement and fundraising tools, and that's where they raise the money that supports the rest of the school. So, for example, at USC, again, if you're the guy who's going to give $100 million to the med school is standing there next to the president, hanging out with Anthony Munoz and George Lucas and Steven Spielberg and everybody and Snoop Dogg and everybody else. And that's where they're schmoozing them for the money. So all of this stuff is related. And it's really, and I mean, Michigan does the same thing, right? Like they got, meet Michael Phelps and give us $100 million to the med school. And because all of this is so related and so integrated, it really has a lot to do with itself, with each other.
But the other Tony is pointing out the Illinois game. So let me just point out the Illinois game for somebody who went to the Illinois game.
You were there. That's right.
I was there. I was in my parka, Lucky is a stretch. Brett Bielema made some questionable end of game decisions, to say the least. And JJ improv'd to some people who let's face it wasn't the absolute starters of the team. But JJ improv'd. He did just enough to make it happen. And then Jake Moody made the kick that brought him to the third round of the draft. That kick is why 49ers, I think, I could be wrong, you guys can challenge me on it, but I think that kick is part of the reason why the 49ers took him third round. Brett
Bielema white-knuckled a 1-point lead in the last 4 minutes, and he thought he could just hang on to the ball and hang on for dear life and get out of there with a win. But you can't do that with you can do that with a minute left, or 90 seconds left, or at midfield, but you don't do that at your own 15-yard line with 4 minutes left. No. Punting in cold conditions to midfield, no. Just set up Michigan to be like, first down, field goal, we're out of here.
You know what? As my dad used to say, sometimes it's better to be lucky than good. And, the other thing, too, is you think about championship teams. Also true, Antoine. Think about championship teams, guys. Every great championship team had moments where they got lucky. Mm-hmm. And being good is what makes you able to be lucky.
How about week 11 for almost every single major, like week 11, Georgia struggled, Ohio State struggled, and Michigan struggled. Everybody struggled.
And didn't we struggle against like Cal or somebody that week? Or Arizona, where we had the refs just like randomly ending the half, and also it was one of those.
Those were back-to-back weird games, yeah.
Yeah, so weird games happen. And of course, the mark of great team is that they're able to succeed despite those weird things happening.
I think it was a Damn Beast Media who said the ball is shaped weird or is shaped funny, and sometimes things happen. And week 11 was a great example of that.
We got our weird shaped ball from the very first international game when Harvard played McGill. And they liked playing with the Canadian rugby ball better. And that's where we got our ball shape.
About that.
Funny enough. Exactly. Any questions, guys? Questions from the chat? We got a good group here in the chat. You guys have been having a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
It's been fun reading it.
We do want to remind everyone that we're in the process of putting together 2 special live streams where we will be reviewing the Ohio State-Michigan game of 2016 and the Ohio State-Clemson playoff game from 2019. 2 controversial games. This is the great debate month here at the Voice of College Football, so we want to go behind closed doors of sorts. So we're going to do this Patreon, YouTube memberships because we're watching video. There are going to be rights involved, that sort of thing. So we will get past the rights issues because we want to be able to watch the plays in the game and just have a great time watching college football. Of course, analyzing those crucial plays and those controversial plays and calls, and we're going to have a great time with that. So be on the lookout for those notifications.
Real quick to Antoine asking how USC is reacting coming to the Big Ten. USC is excited and has actually, you'll start to see things have started to change already. So, for example, USC puts out a style guide, like how to abbreviate your graduation year and like what do we capitalize in School of Business, all that kind of stuff. And under the sports section, the Big Ten conference, it's the Big Ten. They tell you to spell it out as TEN and all that. Like they're ready. If you look at the Big Ten Academic Alliance already, they list the 16 provosts. And it's USC and UCLA on there, or 17 because Chicago's on there. Yes, they list the 17 provosts, and it's USC and UCLA right there in alphabetical order. Nebraska just came out with their new graphic style guide and gave the Big Ten logos, and there's 16. So it's happening. It's exciting.
I'm excited for you guys to come join us. Like,
I can't wait.
Those are going to be some great games.
Yeah, they are. They're going to be fun. I mean, the two I mean, you got, because the thing is, and John, I don't know if did you go to any of the Michigan USC Rose Bowls in the 2000s?
No.
Okay, so I went to 3 of them, I think, and they were all a blast. I mean, when you got like Fight On one side and the Victors on the other, and Tribute to Troy versus Let's Go Blue, like it's just everything that sports are supposed to be. So it's going to be fun.
Is a great topic. Now, could we don't have the wherewithal or the information to be able to size this down to the percentage value of each school in regards to the media rights deal in the Big Ten. But we could have a pretty lively and informed debate about estimating how much each one of those schools, based on their football value and their TV ratings and so forth. That would be an interesting discussion there. Yes.
So I'm actually working on, I have this little side data project. Well, so I have this little side data thing that I'm doing that is the most annoyingly stupid thing ever, which is I'm trying to get a better TV database. And I tried to find a client that wanted to pay for it to be done, so I could just send it to somebody overseas to do. And it was going to be so much of a pain, and also I wouldn't really trust them to get some of the stuff right. So I'm actually manually adding to my big football database every game since 2012 that's been on TV. And I already have every game played since 2012 and what it was broadcast on, but I don't have the ratings. And so I'm manually adding those in. And it's like a little thing I do when I'm like bored and I have a minute. I'll do like another week. And we're going to be able to get some really, really, really cool data out of that. I won't bore you with the details of why it's a pain in the neck, but like they're abbreviated, like, MSU versus U of A, which MSU, which U of A. So actually it's a huge pain in the neck. So it's just my little side project, but we're going to be able to do some really cool statistical stuff out of that. And we could do some stuff with that. I already have like all that stuff, like fan base by DMA and viewership. And so we could do some really cool stuff on that if you guys want it. Maybe as we get closer to the season. Also, if anyone wants to type those in, just let me know. Send you a week.
I've been saying this for weeks, but I promise program rankings will be out soon. We will get to both of the 2023 program rankings, and then we're going to leave a gap of time because I don't want to confuse anyone. We have in the past, and then in maybe 4 to 6 weeks, the all-time program rankings that we deliver.
And if you need new data, Mark, I've got it updated. You can even do D2 and D3 now.
I was going to say, Tony, some of the data that you've had, I thought, oh my word, this would save me so much time.
I have it all. Yeah, let me know. We'll chat. We'll just send you what you need.
Phenomenal. All right, everyone. Are we good? Tony, thank you so much for doing this once again. And again, everyone who has a favorite team, most likely we will be headed your way with another deep dive. And which team is coming up next, we don't know. So keep it locked in here at the Voice of College Football.
Fight on, everybody.
Go Blue. Got to do a Go Blue. It's a Michigan